Right, yeah, I just wanted to do a little piece on why you maybe hear me banging on about how stale airsoft's become in terms of event types. And a lot of people would say you're elitist or you're just moaning or whatever. But the truth is the evolution of airsoft at the local club was very much independent of what was happening in the rest of the UK or the world, really. I'm talking before the internet, 1991 onwards. And instantly we latched onto these multi-day games, hard games, or even just full-day patrolling games. And that became the basis for our sport. Now, to us, it was sport. Originally we'd wanted to be paintballers, but we couldn't afford the extortionate paint costs. And obviously, we were nobodies. So we decided, we'd get into airsoft and do it on the cheap amongst ourselves. We managed to get the backing of the council, get land, insurances, then other landowners involved, and yeah, it was excellent. But the games were very, very different from what it seems the rest of everybody seems to be doing, which is, at the beginning, you met up in the safe zone. The safe zone wasn't like your typical safe zone. You had to walk about half a mile with all your kit across difficult terrain just to get to the safe zone, which was like a little buttress near a river. It was isolated by a river and taped off. And once the initial game plan was sorted, which was you flipped a coin, the teams were made, there was handicaps, which was just down to your experience. If you were completely new, you gave your team extra points just from the off, just from having new people. So there was encouragements to having newer people, and it tried to balance the game. The games were always trying to be balanced with, as close as possible, equal handicaps and equal numbers. So it was very much a lot of thought put into the team building. Now, I don't really see that at skirmish or very many events, because people generally are just split down the middle on numbers, on heads, or they sign up for a specific team for a milsim or something like that. Now, what I'm saying is the amount of thought that needs to go into teams is what's going to make or break the event. Because how many events have you been to where morale drops on one team, or it's obvious that one team's outclassed, be it on skill or firepower or both, and numbers, and the positions have to be fair. So what we did there was, to make it fair, was we cut the map in half. You flipped a coin. Once you flipped the coin, it dictated which end of the map you got. You shook hands at the safe zone. Timer started. You had 10 minutes. Both teams would grab all the kit and dash out of the safe zone while a ceasefire was on for the first 10 minutes. Now, in them 10 minutes, you could try and track the other team. You could do whatever you wanted. Most teams would move off towards, into their area and set up an all-round defence, and then from there, send scouts back once the ceasefire's over, send them back, or leave sentries to make sure you're not followed, and move off. And there'd be a designated team leader. Now, he'd have been designated as the team leader way before the event. He'd have studied the maps, he'd have looked at the teams, he'd have come up with a game plan. He'll have thought, this is where we're going to camp mainly, and this is where my sentries are going to be. He'd study the map, do all the map work, right? If not, he'd come up with another game plan, which is what our team did nearly always, which was we tried to play a mobile game. Now, the rules allowed that if you carried your flag with you, because this is the thing, you had a flag, it's quite large, there was rules, you couldn't lay it down hiding in a bush or anything like that. It had to be stood up, it had to be seen from so many metres away in like a reasonable arc. So you were allowed to carry it. Now, if you carried it, yeah, as long as it's in your hand, you could do what you wanted. You could shove it in a bush, but you had to hold on to it. So we played a game where we'd carry our flag with us. If the man with it got shot, yeah, he has to stand it up, and you have a chance it can be the points lost from it. But the other teams have come up with other game styles, which should be, either try and build a covert camp, or have a camp. You just keep moving the camp every so many hours, get the flag, move somewhere else, set a perimeter. Or you could just build one real strong point, put up bashers as bunkers, which some teams were renowned for. You know, they just built, got there, built, had sentries, built, then had a strong defence, so they could send out patrols to look for the other team. Now, both teams would often have patrols that went out from the beginning. Now, it might only even be one man. Well, that was rare, although I have done it. So the game itself, right, is 2 days of, you've got to capture the other team's flag. Now, as in, you can't pick it up and move it. It's got markers on it. It's got one for each day. So if you can get up to it that day, you can take this marker off. Doesn't matter if you're then shot, you've got the marker and it's worth 10 points. Now, each team also had 2 tag zones, your regens, respawns, whatever you want to call them. And they were also like a poled station. You had to carry all this from the beginning. They had clipboards on, they were waterproof, they had pens attached on strings, they had a whistle attached, they had a watch attached, they had an umbrella. So if it was raining, you could stand under it. And there was rules for setting them up. So you generally set one up near your flag. There was rules you couldn't set up within 75 metres of it. And you couldn't set it up within 75 metres of the enemy flag or any enemy spawn points. Yeah, so there were certain rules, but you generally put one near your camp or in your area and one down the other end of the land where you suspect the other team is. Now, when I say you divided the land in half, that's only for the initial part where you exit. You could camp anywhere, you know. It was a full transforming, evolving game. So as things had happened, your team would come up with things to react. What we're going to do next, right? We need to patrol, we need sentries, we need to, maybe we'll lay an ambush. There must be enemy patrols out. Right, we'll do a perimeter patrol, you know. Send out specific patrols to different areas using radios, a lot of map work, you know, listening to enemy radios. Good teams would come up with codes before the event, right, on the back of the map. So there was a lot going on in this type of game. Now, this is what we did from being kids in 1991, and wow, what a thing to do. We had no money. Suddenly we had this amazing sport. We had, like, I don't know, maybe 500 acres we could play in. It was vast, you know. It kept us fit. I mean, this is a long time ago. You had to walk to the site with all your kit, and when you walk to the site, you know, you'd only get to one end of it, then you'd have to walk onto the other end if your team had picked that end, whatever. Basically, there was a lot of walking involved, you know, so a few miles carrying all your kit, so you became good at admin, you became good at, like, having minimal amounts of everything, you know. You made your water last, you made your food last, you didn't go back to a car, there wasn't one, we were kids. So obviously this evolved, and we went to college and blah blah blah, but we kept doing it. It was something we just kept doing, and we did this from like 1991 pretty much solidly till 2003, you know. And there'd be calendars that have 30 odd days of gaming on a year. It was all non-profit. The event fees were, for nearly all of it, apart from maybe the last 3 years, the event fees for the first decade were £3 for a weekend. And your insurance and annual membership was about £28. So it worked out, you know, around about £100 for the year, and you got about 30 days of gaming out of it, which is just crazy, isn't it? So although we were skint, well, we had pro kit, we made do, you know, we put our time into, like, building gillies, you know, from old scraps, dyeing stuff. You know, this is something we were doing, like, right back then, because we started to come up against teams who had AEGs and things like that. Originally, we just had basic spring gun kits, and eventually, yeah, we all went on to AEGs in the first few years. Non-hop for the first 2 AEGs I bought, and then on to I think it was the Vietnam version, which came out about 95, was the first hop-up gun that I owned. And that changed the game again. We never had upgrades allowed. We said we're good at this from the beginning. We didn't really understand all the physics of it and powers and limits. I mean, we had some really high-powered spring guns. We had terribly light ammo. But eventually we realised Tokyo Marui, around, you know, sub a joule, 0.7 of a joule, whatever, was fine, so we set a limit 300 feet per second for automatics. Now, we never encountered an AEG back then that ran twos over 300. It just didn't happen. They were nearly all 270. You know, good one was 285. Something like an MP5K might be like 250. And that was your range, you know. It didn't matter what gun you bought. They were all very similar. They were all semi-fully automatic. They all had high caps available after a few years. Now that changed the game massively, and sadly that became the norm even in our gaming, and it was something we always regretted, but we knew we couldn't remove it because it was making gaming more expensive and less accessible for newcomers. So because back then mid caps, there wasn't even mid caps actually, they were really low caps, and they were expensive. They were like £20 odd a go. And I remember I did have a loadout where I think I had 6 of them, and I used to run against people who were all just on high caps, and it was difficult. But what I'm saying is the game style, the game types allowed open-ended gaming. It's what we realised from the beginning. You want to be able to do your own thing in a game. Everyone hates that game where they go, you must charge into your opponent's sights while he's in that bunker and you're not allowed to flank, you know. Well, this you can do that if you really want, but it's pretty stupid. You know, it's about intelligent play. You'd sit and watch other camps for like hours and then think, oh, we're going to attack after dark, we're going to attack at dusk, we're going to wait for dawn, we're going to attack during, you know, 2 a.m. All these crazy things that happened, you know, every month. And for the full month, we'd talk about, wow, it was amazing what we'd done. About the actual gameplay. Now, there's very little documentation of these games even existing. There is like old websites that were write-ups, memoirs and things with very minimal photographs, because we had no money, so we didn't really have cameras, you know. Any VHS cassettes we had, I think there's maybe one left, they've all disappeared. You know, we lend things to people, and it's become the dark ages for us. But for the few people who did play that, they'll always look at skirmish as just being, it could be so much more. It's not being derogatory to it. It's just, why, you know, you go to a site and you've gone there because you've looked it up and it's reasonably big and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you get there and they just play smaller games in confined areas. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's a commercial business, and ours wasn't. It was a club. But anyone was welcome. And obviously there'd be guides who'd teach you how to get around the land and how the map worked, and all them key things were quite essential, you know, campcraft, fieldcraft, map reading, common sense, you know. Don't go out and get absolutely soaked if you have no waterproofs when you could just stay on camp defence in the shelter, put up a basher, throw some cam on it, dig in, you know. And like, there was a lot of like basic sort of skills that are just lacking from the modern field, just about working in a unit over like not just a firefight. Do you get me? Most teams, they only experience really a lot of firefight environments. I know Milsimmers don't and things like that, but you play these full day games and your team can just have a radio to the CO. You know, he tells you, right, initially I want you to recon this area on the map, try and go undetected, try and detect the enemy and report back via radio. We want to know where their flag is without being detected ideally, so we could raid it. You've got 3 hours, report back to me at this location. And there you go, suddenly you've got your own mission that you've created yourself that is actually relevant to the game and is proactive to the objectives. And obviously, you know, as things develop, you've got to react. It's how good your basic sort of infantry skills are, really, which is about communication and being able to organise and rally your team. Just hear a little mouse running by down here. So, you know, these games, like, they were very restrictive. They were very open-ended rules. You could play the same game for years, and we did. And you know, it just produced a lot of happiness amongst the players, and quite a level playing field as well, and very hard fought and memorable games. You know, there wasn't really any arguing. You know, we didn't have high-powered guns, so there was very few, I'd call them injuries or welts even to people. You know, there'd be some, maybe one on an event where someone's maybe shot someone too close, but 0.7 of a dual gun, you know. we had very light protection, although most people did use a face veil, because it became suddenly, obviously in this environment, it became a different game. If you're standing around smoking tabs, wearing your desert tan in the woods, then people like me really enjoy shooting you from unseen, and some teams were persecuting until they learnt the lesson, which is you need a perimeter, you need to go undetected, which, let's face it, people seem to neglect that when it comes to what they think infantry skills are. Camouflage, right, is key. The modern battlefield, you're detected. Yeah, it doesn't matter how much training you've had, they're just going to fire artillery at you and airstrike, and you've seen how devastating that is. So the entire premise of all of this combat type game, or even real combat, is don't be seen, don't be detected, they don't know that you're there. It's Sun Tzu, the art of war. Don't even be where they anticipate you. Don't strike when they anticipate strike. Don't come from the angle they anticipate. Right? All this became what this sport that I'm trying to describe to you, it taught us all these lessons. We often watch teams, maybe sometimes for like 6 hours or something, or spend hours crawling in and just waiting using radios, right? Someone's going to the toilet now, crawling a little bit further, and etc. So, it was a different game style, and it produced bigger, more varied, and, dare I say it, challenging and more sporting games. Because if you lost, it was generally your own fault. It wasn't like, oh, it's because they put us in that bunker and it's a pellet magnet. That was your own choice to go in there. You had all this area to do, and you decided what you did with your manpower. If you'd left your camp with just 2 men defending it, and it got taken, well, hey, that's kind of like, who can you blame? So it didn't really ever become a blame game. People just accepted what happened, but like, people played smart, and they were motivated to play. They were motivated to pull their weight on the team. No one shouted at anyone, and no one there was no rank, or this is nothing like any military structure. They just have little team leaders, and then an actual coordinator, he was called, and he organised all of the team leaders who were making up that side. So there's 2 sides made of teams. So my team might enter, but so might 3 other teams. So we'd look at all the handicaps. I'd be put with, my team would be put with another team, and the other teams would sort of be put together, who sort of dictated why similar numbers, very similar handicaps. So, and that's how the game progressed. Obviously, we'd be put with people who were less experienced, and that in itself would teach them how we operated and bring the game on, and so forth and so forth. And a lot of this ran without like incident, or even many marshals. Yeah, I did my fair share of marshalling, and at one point my team did take a full year out just to marshal and bring on other players, and it all worked. So anyway, this long rambling rant, what I'm saying is can't we do more? Can't we, I know some sites do this type of game, but can't we push for skirmish to be bigger, longer games that the regulars get used to playing, and they drag the other newcomers along with them into the right areas at the right time? And obviously sites would have to nominate who they feel are the most effective coordinators amongst the players to lead these teams to have a good game. You don't want one team with a poor CO who's ineffective, because they're going to end up in the wrong place, the wrong time, or just be behind. So yeah, you want good team leaders, and this game will bring all of those skills on and encourage them and make people think outside of the box and do more daring things. I'm not saying swing on vines or climb down cliffs or anything, but I just mean, attacking at dusk, or, wait until the other team's starting to eat, or just all these things that, just they're outside of what skirmish is now. I know skirmish isn't like a full weekend normally or anything like that, but you can just play a full rolling game. What you do is you'd get your rentals, you'd maybe form them up and have a quick game with them at the beginning while the other teams deploy. So they got used to the kit, learn how it worked, and then take them off to their team as reinforcement groups or something like that. That's what I'd do anyway. So different game style. In a way, it is more real sim. You know, it's just a bigger, more challenging game type. So rant over. Thanks for listening to my waffle. But I just like I say, I was just going over where I'm from and why I'm saying there's more that we could be doing, because I've been there, we experienced it, it was sustained, and you know, that only came to an end due to sale of the land and people moving on from college and blah blah blah. But that's the background of Hunteering, and Hunteering was just the next stage from that, but by removing teams to make it even harder and limiting ammo to a handful. But we're extremists, and obviously we had all that background behind us. We understand it's hard for people to jump in to what we're doing. They think it's unachievable, but it isn't. This is the other key thing. There's a lot of people we feel would like to come hunteering, and maybe even mention that we're going to come hunteering, but they never quite make it. Yeah, I understand it is a long way to travel, and it is all time, and you need all those things. But people do mil sims and likewise, and they're generally more expensive events, so you know, I can justify the petrol maybe. But what I'm saying to you is if you come and do any of the courses we do or play any of the open events we do, then that gives you an excellent grounding to come into the main game with us. You know, that the higher level games. So we don't just throw people in at the deep end. We try and teach people as much as we can, or encourage them in the right ways that we can, that will develop their own enjoyment and effectiveness in the game. So don't be scared of hunteering events. Is obviously the last thing I'm saying here, is especially things like the wire and that. They're very, you know, it's less stressful as an event as the wire. You know, the enemy's not sneaking up behind you, he's not amongst you, you don't have to look over your shoulder because he's always in front of you in that. It's more of a sniper duel, and you get to play with a team of other guys, and it's about teamwork, radio comms and stuff. And you know, you have one day of like planning and training on day one amongst yourselves. So you know, that in itself is just bringing on people's skills, and that's what all these event types did. You know, this is why we're the players playing the types of games that we want to play now, because we put the effort in to trying to play more than skirmish. You know, we found a lot of the players at the end of the old club who moved off and went on just to do skirmish at other sites all seemed to leave the sport within a year and been playing like a decade or more. So that in itself was interesting to me, and what I'm trying to make some parallels to are, if you went on a Call of Duty server that had insta-kill, it had 300 round magazines and it had no recoil and it had high rate of fire, yeah, how long would you play on that server for? You know, is it really that enjoyable? Yeah, it's alright. Yeah, at first it'll be a lot of fun, but that's the initial buzz of skirmish, isn't it? And then after a while it's a bit, I kind of wish there was like some limitations on this. It'd make it more skillful, challenging and a bit harder, you know, and that's why people play hardcore mode and stuff like that. So this is where, you know, sadly I see the parallels there. People might say that's elitism, but I actually see it as physical properties of two different games, and it's the difference between playing drafts or playing chess. So anyway, I'll leave you with that, and I'm going to go crawl around a bit more. Thanks for watching.